This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 137.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. This is show 137. Thank you guys for being here. So a couple weeks back, I did an interview with Benny where I chatted with him why he left his old job and why he went somewhere new. Today, it's kind of similar but different. Today, I'm talking to Joshua Smith, who is the person who actually came up with the nickname the Baritone SE for me, which I like. But, that's neither here nor there. We do discuss how he handled being let go after Corona. So that happened, by the way, in case you're wondering. He was let go due to Corona, and he went through a period of time where he was looking for a job, and luckily he found it. And now he is drinking from the fire hose, as we usually do. We do discuss his new company, how he works with it, and how he's learning new stuff. It's in the same kind of security industry, but they do something totally different than what he used to do. So we will discuss kind of shifting industries as well. And that's pretty much it for today. I don't want to belabor the point. All right, guys, let's jump into the show. Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello.
You didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, no.
How are you doing, Joshua?
I'm good. I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for coming on. So I just mentioned your name is Joshua Smith.
Yes.
Who are you? And why are you back here?
Yes. Who am I? I'm Joshua Smith.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. Currently, I am a sales engineer with Varonis out of the greater Denver area. And why I'm on here is because I used to be a sales engineer with Sophos out of the Southern California region, right?
Right. Yeah. So you were one of the first few people on Leave No SE Behind or No SE Left Behind initiative. Yeah. And you took a chance. I appreciate you coming on. I don't know if it helped you or not, but hey, I'm glad you were able to do it. I'm glad you were able to get a job shortly after.
Yeah.
The effects of Corona took place.
Yeah.
So how's it been?
I'll say it helps me here, right? The job I ended up getting was through, thankfully, my previous manager. He lined me up with a bunch of opportunities, and those panned out. I did get a bunch of leads through the No SE Left Behind and the collab forum for SEs. I made a lot of good friends there, a lot of good contacts there, and it was really good emotional support because, it's one thing to leave your job for greener pastures. It's another thing to get fired because you deserved it. It's completely another thing to just kind of out of the blue get laid off.
Yeah.
It's kind of a kick in the pants, not in a good way.
You didn't earn being laid off. It was just luck of the draw. Right? No, it doesn't matter how good you are. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
So actually, let's talk about that because it happens to a lot of people. It's happened to a lot of people, especially during these times. How have you dealt with that when you first got the news? Did you punch somebody?
No. I'm a pacifist. The only thing I beat up was definitely my liver. Maybe that first night. That's not the only thing I beat up. But luckily, I have an amazing wife who just knows how to soothe the beast, if you will. So she pretty much in gentle terms say there's no time for a pity party. It's time to get back on the horse and start making some phone calls. You've made a lot of connections over your years in the industry, and now it's time to start reaching out to those contacts and make something happen.
Yeah. I haven't been let go of a job, luckily, because I'm in Ottawa and I guess there's a shortage. But I've had bad news. Some stuff happened to the family or whatever. And you give yourself some time. You give yourself 1 day, 2 days, all right, 24 hours, mourn, whatever it is you need to do, and then get back to work. Otherwise, it'll just be, you're going to beat yourself up for the rest of your life, pretty much. All right.
This has been a horrible year for everybody, right? Everyone has lost one or multiple things, whether it's jobs, whether it's family, whether it's health. I mean, this has definitely been a year to test your mental fortitude and your will to just get up every day. Sometimes is a struggle, even to this day. you know.
All right, this is not the route I expected my conversation with Joshua Smith to take, because we keep joking every time we see each other. But hey, this is good, because no, it's true. Many people run into stuff,
Yeah.
and we have to be strong. It's a good thing to have a good, I guess, not backup, a good support system.
100%.
And I'm glad you had that. I'm glad your wife was able to push you out and help you. She didn't kick you out of the house, right?
No.
All right, but she did push you to go out and get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And you found a job through a connection.
Yes. Yeah.
I heard you changed industry, right?
I mean, it's still in cybersecurity, but essentially, my previous employer was more in the like software hardware kind of cybersecurity. It's like things like firewalls, AV, anti-spam, antivirus, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Whereas with Varonis is a lot more kind of what's beyond that in terms of like data security, right?
Okay.
So monitoring everything from every touch of data, where are you exposed, those kind of things. So it kind of goes past that, stopping bad guys from coming in. It's more like bad guys are going to come in. How can we know, what the insider threats are touching? How can we know when something they're doing is off? And, if you get hit with ransomware, right, wouldn't it be better to know which exact files across your entire infrastructure got encrypted so you can restore those specifically, as opposed to just paving your entire infrastructure and going back a month? So it's along those lines. So it is cybersecurity. So I definitely bring a lot of my previous experience with me, but at the same time, it's like a whole new world. So I definitely am like drinking from the fire hose, doing 10 weeks of straight training. And my brain is just like, running out my ears at this point.
Like, is it more machine learning and AI trying to capture information and analytics on the stuff that you have in your network? Is that what
it's really about kind of taking all those disparate logs and, whether it's, sys logs, VPN logs, auditing Active Directory, taking all that, normalizing it, and then creating a story out of it. So rather than having to look at like a SIM, which is just like everything you figured out, it's more like, here's who did what, when, from where, why, and how, right? And then leveling machine learning on top of that to say, is this something this person normally does?
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of a combination of both.
The reason I was asking wasn't really to advertise Varonis, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just trying to point out, like, you're still in security.
Yes.
But it's two totally different things. It is a different industry. Like, you're talking from networking to machine learning and AI and analytics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And 10 weeks of training. So first off, how did you feel going into this role? And did you take, what enticed you about taking this role specifically?
So a couple things. I'll start with why I took it and then how I kind of, how I kind of fell through that, right? Yes, I'll give you some time. I took it because I got a referral from someone I trusted, which was my previous director. And then I went out and talked to my peers because, what the heck is data security, right? It seems nebulous to me, right? And I couldn't wrap my head around it because it's just something that was not in my wheelhouse necessarily, right? I went from being focused on the endpoint, and Varonis is like everything but the endpoint. We're looking at everything around it, right?
Yeah.
So I talked to enough people. They said, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them. I know they've got good stuff. We're looking into them right now." I talked to another big brain friend of mine that said, "I love what they're doing. If we don't do what they're doing in some sort of way in the next 5 years, we're going to be irrelevant." Right. So anyone that had ever heard of them had good things to say. And in the referral I got, I trusted. So I didn't join this company for what I knew about them. I joined this company for what my trusted circle knew about them. And that was enough for me to take the plunge.
Okay.
And the pay raise, I mean, that didn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
And then moving to a place, my wife was over Southern California. So I said, hey, how about moving to a place that's near the mountains, near the outdoors, where everyone is like low body fat because everyone goes outside. I'll get paid a little bit more and the cost of living will go down a little bit. I mean, it was just like, there was no to be had there. Right?
Wait till you start shoveling snow.
I did it. We had a random snow a couple weeks ago. I got up, saw snow, saw that my neighbors had shoveled the sidewalks. So I looked like the a-hole. So I jumped in my car, drove down to Home Depot, bought a snow shovel, and I started going.
Funny that soon you start calling it a shovel because there's no other kind of shovel in cold climate. Yeah. Coming from Ottawa, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
All right. So what was good? So you talked
Why
about
I
your
took it. That was why I took it.
yeah.
Right.
So you talked about your colleagues and friends. They weren't all SEs. It seems that you were talking to different kinds of people who knew different things, right?
Yeah, I talked to like directors of IT. I talked to my director, obviously, of my previous. I talked to some people that were essentially like AWS security gurus. I just talked to pretty much everyone I could just to gather as much information as I could. Trying to make that Ben Franklin pro con list, and the pro just got to a point where I'm just like, okay, it seemed like a no brainer.
So some people are afraid to reach out to their contacts to ask those kinds of questions. They seem needy or something. How did you make sure that you didn't need them in the last second? Or did you develop a relationship beforehand, or did you just reach out and ask?
Oh no, I knew all these people. I mean, yeah, like I was chatting with them, and on the phone, via text. These were people that I'd been on fairly regular cadence with before, right? And being a nerd, being into tech for so long, right? You develop a pretty sizable network of fellow nerds, right? That are going to know these kind of things and know these companies that are in the industry, right? Because I was in the channel as an MSP for a while, and then previously with my previous employer, I was on the vendor side being in the channel. So I knew enough people that knew enough about the industry that they recognized the company and they knew someone there.
Yeah. And did you you probably helped them out beforehand, or you've guys worked together? It's not necessarily
peers, former coworkers, just associates. Yeah, it wasn't like I was cold calling some random person and being like, "Hey, what do you know about this company?" Right? Because then, why would I take their opinion?
Why would they answer you, anyways?
Yeah, what would they answer?
So that's the reason I'm coming up with we need our support structure. We just talked about that.
Yeah,
and we need to be there for them, and they need to be there for us whenever needed.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm doing well. I'm there for other people. Hopefully, if something craps out and I'm out of a job and I need some help, people will be there for me. Right.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is, don't wait till you need someone to actually go out and ask for help. Just reach out, build connections ahead of time, dig your well before you're thirsty, and make sure you're there for other people as well, so that you can actually, when you need them, that's not the only reason you do it. Be there for them because you're a good person, but hopefully when you need them, they'd actually help you. All right.
Yeah, because if everyone only takes, then there's, you can't, there's no one giving, right? It needs to be a balance.
Yeah. I feel like I just gave a lecture. So hopefully nobody got annoyed by my lecture. Moving on.
You got to come in with a little TEDx little logo, with your little.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
You'll help me with it.
Yeah.
All right. So you joined Varonis. How did the first week, actually, how did the interview process go? And then how did you get started? How did the interview process go? Let's start with that.
The interview process was pretty straightforward because I had experienced it with my previous vendor. And again, it was a time of Corona, so it was some delays. And oddly enough, when I interviewed for my last job 2 years ago, there's also a bit of a blip. I forget for what reason, but they kind of had a hiring freeze as well. So I'm used to doing 9 interviews and then having to wait a month to hear back, right? So I was ready for that. But it's a lot of you don't know. You don't know what you're going to walk into. You talk to a sales guy, like a sales director, and they're not going to talk to you about tech, right? They're going to talk to you about how do you create rapport? How do you talk to people? How do you do these kind of things, right? And then you talk to a technical person, they're going to talk to you about walk me through the OSI 7-layer model, right? So you got to be prepared for that. I mean, I think I approached it like I would approach a new prospect meeting, whereas I knew who I was meeting with. So I just went out and, Google stalked them, jumped on LinkedIn, see how nerdy they were, see what groups they belong to, see if we had any common associates, because then you just, do a little name drop, right, to kind of create that comfortable area. And then, brush your hair, put on a polo, make sure there's nothing lewd in the background, and, approach it like you would if you're going to go in person. And that's kind of what I did. Everyone was nice there, right? I never really got any gotchas or any jerks that were trying to stump the chump. I got that in other interviews, I'll tell you what. So that fear I always had that someone was going to ask me some really esoteric question, it finally happened. Luckily, it was with a different company.
Yeah, it happens a lot. My experience is that they use acronyms or they use terminologies that are from their own company, right? Other people might not use it unless they're using the standard solution selling or spin selling or whatever it is. Challenger selling, that's the new thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did your 10,000 interviews.
Yeah.
All the way up. When you started your job, what was the main challenge that you were facing?
What do we do? What is the Varonis, data security platform? Because it's a beast. I'll tell you what, it is a stack and a half. But what it does is some pretty crazy stuff. The thing of it is that this is the first time I've really been at or even worked with a sizable company where all their tech was in-house, right? It wasn't acquired. It was built by the CEO. The CEO was an engineer for another company, and he found a problem, solved it, and went, "Hey, I think other people could use this as well." So he founded the company with the tech that him and his buddies, wrote. It's almost making me think back to like the Apple or the HP days, right? Where you're just like hacking in a garage and you come up with a company, which I almost think is becoming more rare these days. So it was created by an engineer, so it's super nerdy, right? It takes a little while to understand what it is we do, but once you do, you realize, okay, this is something that I need. So first of it was understanding what it is that this thing does, and then starting to just go down the rabbit hole, because since this was designed by an engineer, the documentation is like War and Peace, right?
Yep.
I went from like starving for documentation to drowning in documentation from my last vendor to this vendor. And so, to this day, I'm still like, okay, I still don't know every facet of the application. But the last time I felt like it took me about really a year and a half to become comfortable in my skin.
Yep.
Right. So I'm just setting myself up to be like, listen, you're not going to know everything. They have an amazing support system here, right? I've never had so many resources at a company that's a fourth of the size of my previous company, and they just like, if you need an SME, you've got it. If you want your director on the call, you've got it, and no one judges you for that. They just want to help you and make you succeed. So it's a really interesting like environment to be in, where they're not throwing you, out of the tree and expect you to fly. They'll jump with you. So, and that's so far has been really cool, and just helping me just learn the nuts and bolts of this thing is where I'm at right now. Just, half my day is spent talking to people about what we do, and the other half is still learning about what it is that the platform does.
So I'm assuming, like, I'm not familiar with Varonis quite a bit, but I'm assuming there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. How do you know which rabbit hole to go down first? Or are you going down through each one equally? How does it work?
Hey man, that's what your sales rep is for, right? Discovery, right? So discovery is interesting. You pretty much pick one of three rabbit holes. Our pillars are essentially data security, compliance, and then like threat detection and response. So you kind of, through conversation, figure out what the priorities are, and then based off that, you start to go that way. And then you show the platform and how it all is bi-directional and cohesive, so that you can come from the user group side, or you can come from the file folder side, right? It's really all about, we're going to look at your file servers, we're going to look at your Active Directory, we're going to look at your Office 365, right? We're going to look at your Exchange, we're going to look at your NAS and your VPN and your DNS and your web proxy. We're going to take all of that, and we're going to make a cohesive system where we can tell you a story based on the actions that are happening. If someone VPNs in and touches a file here, we're going to tell you how they did it and what they did and what they did afterwards, right? So as you can imagine, that is a lot to process in terms of disparate logs, and then just trying to pull context out of just a log line item.
Okay, so based on what you just said, that's the value prop, right? You're trying to get all the information, and you can decipher what that means. And you just said you did the discovery with your sales guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Are you covering one or multiple?
Well, luckily one. I was really nervous because the one thing I liked about Sophos was that we had a one-to-one, right? That was their big thing, was doing one-to-one, right? And then when I was initially interviewing for this role, they were saying like up to 3, right? Okay. So luckily the territory I'm in is doing so well, they had to bring in a second team to supplement the demand. Right. So, and the funny thing is that I'm new. My sales rep started a week after me. Right. And I think even his director has been here for a couple months. So it's a youthful territory. And even the team that's been here before us, I think has only been here for like a year. Right. So it's a very young in terms of experienced team, but the amount of just like business that they're doing here, I'm looking forward to really kind of hitting full steam.
So who did you do the discovery with to understand which rabbit hole you should go down first? Was it the old sales team?
No, training. They not only do the technical training, but the sales training as well.
Okay.
Right. So, and my director has been here. Actually, he went away and then he came back. So he's very comfortable with the platform and with the company itself. So he's really helped me kind of figure out, how do I, take what they see as the standard SE and take myself, what I see myself as an SE, how do we marry that together and then work cohesively with my new sales rep? So it's a learning process. Listen, we're going to take some new prospect meetings and we're going to bomb, right? We're going to bomb hard. But then what we do is we have kind of a post-mortem call and be like, what could I have done better? What could you have done better? What could we have done better? And then it's funny, I just set up a reoccurring meeting with my sales rep. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3:30, we're going to do a new prospect meeting just to ourselves, right? Because we need more reps to get comfortable in our own skin.
So many good things here. All right. Do you watch basketball, football, whatever, any sports?
Yes. Football. I'm really into football right about now.
Right. Well, so every year there's at least one or two teams who are in the rebuilding phase.
Sure.
They know they're going to bomb.
Patriots?
I guess right now it looks like it.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was their plan, but that's what it's looking like.
Yeah.
But for sales, it seems that's not acceptable. Like we have to win every deal, right? At least that's the impression that we get from higher ups or whatever. Sometimes we need to bomb to learn from it.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes if I don't trust someone to bring them into a meeting and I never bring them into the meeting, they're never going to learn to get better for next time. Yeah. So I'm glad kind of your company is giving you the option to bomb. I'm sure they want you to win.
I'm not saying that they have given me permission to bomb. I'm just saying that whether they do or not, it's going to happen. And we need to make the best of the worst bad situation, right?
Okay. But I'm assuming the pressure.
If you're listening, I'm not bombing on purpose. I'm not bombing on purpose. I promise.
Sales engineering and sales in general is experimentation.
True. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you have to try something new. And I keep telling, especially right now with Corona, we're all at home. We're not visiting customers. Oh. We're trying to get more people to come and talk to us. Right.
Yeah.
And that's hard. So we're experimenting. Let's do this webinar. Let's entice people by coming in for like you ask questions, you get a voucher for Uber Eats or something.
Yeah.
It's all experimentation. It might not work, but if we don't try it, we'll never know, right?
Yeah.
And it might bomb a couple of times, but then the third time it'll work and it'll just get better and better. But we have to try something. And if you have that mentality that I can never lose, you're never going to try anything new and you're never going to get better.
No, because you're just operating from fear.
Yeah. And that's what you just said. I think I took the long way around to repeat what you just said, but it is basically you're trying to do things. And the second thing you did was reps.
Yeah.
You're just trying to exercise, practice, which is something we rarely do. That doesn't look like a good shot. If someone's watching YouTube, you'll know what I'm talking about.
The mechanics are horrible. I'm thrown off to the side.
You need more practice. Yeah. But hey, you experimented with that. Obviously, it's not going to work. And then you can fix it and do better and do it differently.
Yeah.
So your expectation, you mentioned like year and a half before you're comfortable in your skin, or
I mean, just based off my previous, vendor experience was that, like it's, I mean, going from being comfortable and finally like bursting through your imposter syndrome cocoon and then having to go right back into that cocoon, right, it's a struggle because you, as a sales engineer, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves because, the sales guy, he can BS through the entire presentation, right? As long as he gets that PO, hey, that's a win, right? We have to stand by our word because we deal in facts, and I think the reps deal in feelings. And you can't fuzz a fact. You could, but we don't want to do that because our nightmare is that we make a promise during a new prospect meeting and during implementation that turns out to not be true, and then now our relationship with that person, they're going to remember that.
Yeah. So I love that. SEs deal in facts, salespeople deal in feelings.
Yeah.
And if the SEs messes up on the facts before purchase, the customer is going to be really pissed, which is a feeling after the purchase. So I like that. What are you doing in customer meetings today? Like, okay, at one point, did you feel like, at what point after you started the job did you take your first customer meeting? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. so I've been here 3 months. And another cool thing they had us do was shadow. So pretty early on, after I'd done some basic training just to understand who I was, what I was, they started having me shadow new prospect meetings, data reviews, deep dives, all that kind of stuff, and QBRs. They wanted me to see kind of how they did it, because they've got a pretty well oiled SOP essentially for all the different ways, all the different interactions. They're saying, listen, they're bake me a cake, right? Here's the recipe we use. Make it look somewhat like that, but find your own way. But here's an entire recipe of how to go kind of soup to nuts in terms of how we've presented in the past, how we've done QBRs in the past, and come and watch it, and then do a couple new prospect meetings. And we're gonna be there so that if you stumble, we're gonna catch you. We're gonna jump in and go, oh yeah, so what Josh was meaning was this, right? So that's happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's been it's crazy. Like it's been a very supporting, it's bad to say this, but it's been a very supportive area where everyone wants to help you out. Everyone's like, yeah, come watch me, come learn how I do it and do it your own way. And if you need backup, I'll be there, so that if you're not 100% sure how something works, tag me and I'll jump in and I'll kind of walk through the rest of the demo for you.
So when you're shadowing, you're not just shadowing, you're actually participating, and maybe you're taking lead in a couple.
No. So
okay, I misunderstood.
Literally mean be a fly on the wall.
Okay.
And I'm just sitting there typing away, okay, what are they doing? What are they doing here? What are they doing there? How do they handle this question? I like to write down questions I hear in meetings, so that in the next meeting I can proactively answer that question before the prospect either thinks to ask it or is about to ask it, right? Because one thing I always feel like kind of put someone at ease is when you're answering the questions that they're in their head.
Right. So you were talking. All right, I want to come back to that, but following the previous thread, you were talking about tagging people in if you're uncomfortable or something like that. At what point is that happening? It's not when you're shadowing. It's after.
It's when I start to take. So I've done, I think, about 3 on my own meetings now, and I'll have either another more experienced SE or my director or a subject matter expert with me. If we're talking about something specific, right? So we've got an SME for Office 365, right? So I'm comfortable talking about Office 365. Am I comfortable talking about every way that Varonis can help someone with Office 365? Not yet. Yeah. So I'll kind of do the kind of the high level overview, and then I'll tag in Jeremy. Be like, hey Jeremy, can you go a little bit deeper onto how we help people wrangle all the permissions that get created with Microsoft Teams?
Okay.
Sure, Josh, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty, it feels organic, because obviously I'm like, okay, Jeremy, so when I see this phrase, you jump in.
Right? So is the expectation that you would know it in the future, or is it always going to be you're going to have the subject matter expert with you?
Good. That's actually a great question. I had the same question myself. So they want me to be able to walk through the demo, be able to kind of, work with the customer through a risk assessment, which essentially is our version of a POC or an eval, be able to walk through like a QBR, that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to something specific, like, here's a crazy fact. We have an IR team that's complementary to our customers. So if you're a customer, you've got a full IR team that if you see something weird going on, they'll jump on and help you troubleshoot and help you mitigate ransomware attacks. I mean, that to me, that's crazy, because we used to sell that at my previous vendor for like a premium. And now that's just available, right?
It's part of the package.
Alerts with you, right? It's just part of it. So obviously, if there's something related to a deeper, IR issue, or if there's something deeper in Office 365, I just add that resource to the calendar, and they join, right? Okay. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. They want me to be the tip of the spear, but just know that there's an army behind me.
And what is IR?
Oh, sorry, incident response.
Okay.
So if something goes sideways, if you get breached, then you bring in like an IR team to essentially discover, isolate, mitigate, and recover.
Okay. So are you focused more on like customer relationships or technical expertise, or both?
I think that I am expected to kind of be the point of contact for the customer when it comes to technical items. Obviously, my partner Matt, the sales rep, he's going to be more of the, you want to talk about kind of business level issues, you want to talk about licensing, you want to talk about budgeting, you want to talk about what's coming down the pipe, that kind of stuff. We're a team, but I think when it comes to QBRs and such, I think they actually want me to lead the charge because they want to be data driven, right? So we go in and we'll pull reports and create this whole like pretty elaborate PowerPoint presentation that walks them through where we were 3 months ago and where we are today, because the platform is also about prioritizing and fixing things in the environment.
Right.
So we want to be able to make progress with before you had 80% of your folders were open access to everyone, and we're going to work with you to make that fall off a cliff, right? So only the right people have access to the right files.
Okay, and QBR, could you define that, please, for the
Sure.
folks?
Quarterly business review.
And
essentially, it's every 3 months or so, we want to have a nice deep, maybe 2-hour call with our clients to make sure that they're getting what they want out of the platform, that they're happy, that everything's working, that they're taking full advantage of every part of the solution that they're licensed for. And we just want to do that on a regular cadence, right? That's our quarterly thing.
So I'm familiar with QBRs in terms of like internal to my company. We go in and do, we sold this much, we did this much. This product is not good, this product is great, fix that. But you're saying you're doing that with customers themselves, which is a great idea, I guess.
Customer satisfaction really is what you're going for, right?
Yeah. So generally speaking, like for SEs, we don't earn trust on day one, right? You said you're the first point of contact.
Yeah, right? For the technical aspect, yeah.
Yeah, you're brand new.
The facts point of contact. My rep is the feelings point of contact.
Yeah. So, but you're brand new to the company, brand new-ish right now after 3 months.
Yep.
How are you building that trust, and how are you kind of convincing without actually convincing the customer to reach out to you first before reaching out to anybody else? Because they could reach out to the competition at the same time.
Yeah. Luckily, and it's a weird thing to say, and everyone always says this, but in terms of competition, we've got a pretty good, lead on everyone else around us. So really, I would say from what I've seen, our biggest competition is budget.
Okay.
My previous vendor, that was never a problem. It was the competition, right? Because AV is becoming quite commoditized. Here, it's not a commodity. So it's a premium. It's a premium. So budget is my biggest competitor. It's not that they don't need what we do. It's not that someone does it better. It's whether they can talk to the C-level and say, this is what we need and this is how much it's going to cost. So what I do is I try to be very open, because again, I'm not saying my sales rep is shady, but there's kind of a feeling, right, that sales guys will just say anything for the PO.
Perception. Let's just say perception.
Yeah, 50% fact, 50% fiction. So I kind of try to position myself as the bastion of truth. That listen, if you ask me something, I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability, right? So I'm going to tell you, listen, I've already told you that I've been here for 3 months, right? Yeah. Obviously, if you've been a customer for a year, it's highly likely that you know more than me. But I have access to internal resources. I have the ability to, while you're doing your job, to say, hey, are you having a problem? Let me quarterback that for you, right? Submit a support ticket, forward me the number, and I'll be on top of it to get that for you. Let me assist you on the technical aspects of getting you the best bang for your buck, right? So I'm not saying I know more than you. I'm just saying my focus is to support you. Let me do it. And if anything new comes up or there's something cool I think you should know about, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, no, that's great, because a lot of people ask me like, hey, is it okay for me to tell the customer like I don't know much? I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's actually, you're being honest, and you're not putting yourself in a position where you have to tell lies. Basically, you don't have to let's say just bullshit people on the calls.
Yeah.
And as long as you like you said, hey, open a ticket, send me the number, I'll quarterback it. As long as I actually quarterback it and not forget about it.
Yeah.
Which happens if you have a lot of tickets. Just stay on top of it and you'll earn that trust. No, I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Another question that I get, you mentioned earlier that you shadow, you're a fly on the wall. Some people say, oh, my other colleagues don't want me to shadow them because he doesn't know how to explain it to the customer that I'm there. how did your colleagues explain the fact that you're shadowing them? I'm guessing it's fairly simple.
Hey, so Joshua's joining us today. He's brand new. He needs to see how the what's the expression? How the something's made.
How the sausage is made?
How the sausage is made. Thank you. And so he's just going to join us today. He's just going to observe and blah 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 blah. It's not that they're like, oh hey, let's open up your credit card statement and look at all your intimate details, right? It's mostly, hey, we've made this much progress, we're still making progress, that kind of stuff. There's no intimate secrets that the customer is really sharing on these calls, and so it's just simple like, oh, we got a couple people join us today. Just like sometimes you have your manager jump on a call just to kind of shadow, like, hey, I just wanted to see, greet you and see how Josh is doing, blah 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 blah. It's we work these things up and make these things like these Herculean tasks when all you have to do is just put one foot in front of the other, and before you know it, you've walked 1,000 miles.
Let me try to take a gander at what the customer would answer. Okay. Oh, hey, Josh.
Yeah.
No, Joshua. Sorry.
Yep.
Josh is later.
Depends how it depends on the day. Yeah, it's Josh later. Exactly. Then I unmute my mic, say, hi, nice to meet you. Mute my mic, and then that's it.
So I've actually seen it become a problem sometimes, especially when we were in person. Because sometimes we go in and shadow, and let's say we're doing a lunch and learn, we're in a conference room, and then the SE who's shadowing me just disappears. Like I've seen that happen, where I was like, where did this guy go? One, and then my customer is thinking like, this guy is just wandering around without supervision into our building. He doesn't even have a badge.
Yeah.
So I've seen that. If you're the person shadowing, make sure you're respectful to the customers and don't just go off mute and start yelling stuff yelling at your children, for example, with the mic off. That's just be respectful, I guess. That's the big thing.
Double mute. That's the secret to being a shadow.
I hate double mute, man. Well, maybe to be in a shadow.
Not to say something, double mute is a blessing.
Yeah. Well, when I'm trying to participate, I unmute my phone, and then if I'm double mute, I talk for half hour. And at least with cameras on, I can tell if someone's talking or like they're doing this, and I was like, oh wait, hold on.
Yeah, you want to see your Zoom mic going green. That's the key.
Yeah, well, it's always hidden. That's the thing. See, it's in the corner. Anyways, we're kind of splitting hairs at this point.
COVID problems, right?
Yeah. So, do you have any tips or tricks? Any other tips or tricks to build that relationship with the customer? Because people buy from people they like.
Yeah. I put I rip off a Twitter icon, I rip off a LinkedIn icon, I ripped off the GitHub icon, and I put it in my signature. And then I put in a little link to my Microsoft calendar thing so they can make meetings. I try to just be as accessible as possible. And I try to be, I try to share things on social media. I try to let the people know, like, hey, I join, I connect to everybody on LinkedIn. I send them a message. And then what I started to do last time was I started to create like a monthly newsletter that's curated and only sent to my specific customers. And what I do is, and I got in trouble for this once, is I sometimes try to give them something before it's mentioned, like publicly. I try to give them like a little inside tip or trick, like, hey, this is the patch that's coming Saturday is going to do this, right? And if it's only going to these certain customers, no, boss didn't really know, and it was usually just innocuous stuff, so it was fine. But again, kind of making them feel like they're a part of the team, bringing them into the fold, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to share as much as possible. I try to make them feel special because they're my client, right? And so I be very verbose externally, and I try to be very verbose in this kind of situation. And then I try to also, we can't do it yet, we're going to eventually be able to do it again, is those lunch and learns or those get-togethers, or get a couple customers together, take them to Topgolf or take them out for a beer or whatever. Just try to create essentially a culture of, we're on the same team, we're in this together.
Yeah. So just let me understand this correctly. Initially, you said you rip off LinkedIn, you rip off
the icons. So I just go on Google and I grab a little icon and I put it in my signature, and I link to my profile to make it easy for them to be able to find my Twitter, find my LinkedIn, find my GitHub. Right? Okay,
now I get it. All right.
Yeah,
all right. I got it. So basically, it's just a link for them to get to.
Yeah. I like because email is it was before, like if you included a small profile picture of yourself, it took like 5 minutes to download. I think we're all on broadband enough that,
Yeah.
visual is key. Like you could say, here's my LinkedIn, here's my whatever, but I think people just like, when they see an image, they see a symbol, right? And I think it just, I don't know, just for me, it clicks a little bit better. I kind of like it. It's more visually appealing.
Okay. And for the newsletter, is there something you use to send the newsletter, or is it just an email where you copy and paste 1,000 emails and send it to 1,000 different people?
What was I using? I think like MailChimp or Constant Contact, you can get like a free account if it's like under like 100 recipients, right? And and I think now they have to opt in. So what I would do is I would also put in my signature, join my newsletter, right? And click it and go into an opt-in page. Or I'd send them, initially I sent them all emails and said, hey, join my newsletter. I want to give you like inside information that I can't really share publicly. I only want to be able to share with my client contacts, my trusted contacts.
Right.
So we opt in, and then you just go in, and then, I kind of created a monthly template, right? And I'd go in and I'd say, okay, I want to tell them 3 things that are coming up. One thing that happened, maybe a link to like an interesting security tidbit that I saw, right? So I try to create a template because that's, it's easier to edit than to create from scratch, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. So how are you kind of targeting all your customers with this? Are you targeting all the customers with the same message, or you're changing it? Or like, do all your customers care about the same thing? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, because if they're talking to me, then they definitely have a focus that aligns with what my company does.
Yeah.
Right? So with Sophos, they were really concerned about cybersecurity, or desktop protection, server,
Right.
ML, all that kind of stuff. So I spoke to that. And now with Varonis, I haven't spun this up yet because I've only got to talk to 2 customers. It's going to be more along the lines of the pains of transitioning from a hybrid solution maybe to just Office 365, and how do you wrangle all those permissions, right? Because on a file server, you got read, write, execute maybe, right? But on SharePoint Online, they've got like 25 different levels of types of permissions that you can put into a role, and it becomes kind of unwieldy to kind of control that level of file protection, right? And it's so easy now to share something externally. So it's very easy for the users to take like a sensitive file, like something maybe related to PCI, PII, HIPAA, whatever, and move it from their desktop to their OneDrive. And then, the new email attachment is an external link, right? They right click, say, create a shared link. It's now in an email. It's now out in the ether, right? They've made it harder to kind of fuzz those links, to figure out, kind of enumerate all those links. It's still somewhat possible, but you don't want there to be shared links out in Office 365 forever, right? That anyone can just grab. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm going to be talking to my customers about now, and how we can kind of work together to minimize those risks.
Right. So I'm in a different world where I can do, like, my company sells stuff that tests LTE or tests layer 2, layer 3, and those who test layer 2, layer 3 don't care about LTE.
Right.
But so I use ConvertKit for WeDSEs.
Yeah.
The thing about that is you can segment people. So you can try, if people are interested in doing that, in sending newsletters. I think it's a great idea. If you have time, maybe you should make that. Is it beneficial? Have you seen it to be beneficial to you? I'm assuming that you have, since you're still doing it.
They were reading it, and it's kind of like marketing, right? It's being top of mind. You might not be able to say like, oh, this newsletter got the customer to renew, right? You're never going to know that, but it's just like a relationship, right? You buy your wife flowers, you buy her candy every once in a while, and you're hoping, once in a while, I said, Ramsey, don't worry, and you're hoping that makes it so that she's not going to leave you, and maybe it'll help, right? There's no silver bullet, right? That's what I learned very early on. There's no silver bullet, and to your point, like I get a magazine, right? I'm not going to read every single article, right? Every single article doesn't apply to me, but there's enough in here that keeps me coming back for more. And that's how I kind of look at it. I'm not trying to be the everything to everyone. I'm trying to be just enough to enough people that they find value in continuing the relationship with me and the company.
You want to point them in the right direction, basically.
I just want to be a source of information as it relates to things that they care about. And if they're talking to me, I can kind of gauge that they care about data protection or compliance or threat detection.
I want to talk to you forever. I'll take this the wrong way. I don't know if
Yeah,
you could,
no,
but
hey,
don't take it the wrong way. I know what you're thinking.
yeah.
But it's time to move on to the not
Okay.
so fire round. These are
Okay.
the same 4 questions we ask every guest.
Okay.
Benny usually covers the first and the third, but he's not here, so I'm going to have
Okay.
to do it. What is it that you love about sales engineering?
Geeking out, experimenting, being able to spin up a lab, try to break things. Right now I've got an environment on my desktop in a VM, and in that VM I can do whatever I want. The IT doesn't let me do whatever I want on my laptop, right? So I create a VM environment. In there I can do something like spin up Parrot or Kali or Pop and try to beat up a server, and then I can go and see what I can see in the Varonis platform, right? Because there's so many things going on out there. There's the bad guys are always like, it's a cat and mouse game. Take it to the next level, take the next level. Like, they're exfiltrating data via DNS. They're exfiltrating data via like Gmail. So I like to set up things, break things, because I feel like that's the best way to learn something.
Yeah.
How something works is to break it and see where it broke and see where the blind spots are, because the bad guys are going to figure out that they already probably have, right? So I want to see where I'm exposed and how I can help customers see those new trends, right? So I like, I'm on Try Hack Me every day. I like puzzles, like Capture the Flag. I like just geeking out. That's what I like to do. And being an SE, they pay you to do that. It's crazy.
Are you familiar with CloudShare?
CloudShare, yeah, that's actually one of our demo environments.
Yes. So I was just about to say they're a sponsor for the show, for this podcast, and they have a free demo where you can go in and use their environment. Based on that, it seems that you guys use it and you're okay with it.
That's what our demo environment is. But if I want to get nasty with things, I don't necessarily want to do it on someone else's server. So that's why I have a local install. That's the only reason why I have a local install, is so I can get a little nasty.
All right. Well, that's your choice. Second question.
Yeah.
What is one thing you would change about sales engineering?
What's one thing I would change about just the industry or being a sales engineer?
Whichever one you want to answer.
Yeah. Oh man.
The question was supposed to be, what do you hate about sales engineering? But that sounds very negative. So what would you change? That sounds
like wave a magic wand and change one thing about being an SE. I mean, right now, I would wave a magic wand and make the pandemic go away so that I can go and meet people in person. The one thing about okay, this is the one thing I do dislike about the sales engineering process is these, we're doing essentially all telecoms right now. We're doing teleconferences. Is when the folks on the other end, I always turn my camera on because I try to lead by example. When the other folks you're talking to don't have their camera on, you're going through a 30-minute demo and it's just crickets. You're getting no feedback. You can't see their faces, so you can't know if you're going down the right path, right? You're doing this full harbor tour and you're not hitting on anything, or they're not telling you you're hitting on anything. It's like that dream where you went to school without your pants on. You're just in a cold sweat the entire time. You don't know if you're going left or right, in which direction they want to go in. So one thing I change about sales engineering is have the sales rep make it mandatory that everyone has to have their camera on to make my life easier, so I can read the people's faces.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Have you been able to overcome that since, or not yet?
No, I still want that magic wand to make that happen.
For me personally, I'd stop the demo. I've done it where I tell them like, hey guys, I'm not even sure if I'm doing the right thing for you.
Right.
Can someone guide me, tell me if I'm on the right path? Right.
Okay. I'm going to add that to the repertoire.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it backfires.
Nothing ever always works. If everything always worked, we'd be both consultants and we wouldn't have to demo anymore in our lives.
I'm more of a blunt person, so you might want to put your spin to it, but I'm fairly blunt, and my customers seem to be okay with that mostly. Okay. So if you want to give that a try. Okay. Third question.
Yes.
Is there a book or resource you would recommend for sales engineering?
Here's the thing is that, I jumped on your book club early, so I feel like any book I'm going to recommend is stuff that you already recommended. So I'll do a twist. I'm going to have to put in the show notes because I can't think of it right now. But there's a book I got that was about essentially being better at getting up in the morning and having energy in the morning. So I think sleep hygiene. I know there's some books out there about why we
The Miracle Morning.
Maybe that might be it. Okay. I think just our job is so in the brain that the muscle that needs to be the healthiest for us needs to be the body and the mind. And I think the more we find about sleep, the more we realize it's really a superfood, if you will, that it makes it so that we can have clear thinking. It makes it so that we can have the ability to go layers deep in conversation with people and be able to read and comprehend and all these things. I mean, if anyone's ever done an all-nighter, they especially cracking 40, you know how complete garbage you are the next day, as opposed to if you just randomly go to sleep early one night, you're not feeling too well, you take some NyQuil and you wake up and you just feel like you could run a marathon. So I would think reading more about how to set yourself up for success in sleep, that would be it.
Nice. So I don't think that's the book The Miracle Morning is about what to do when you wake up, and they recommend sleeping 6 hours. I don't think that's the book. And I've never pulled an all-nighter.
6 hours would not, that would not be this book. I think they want to get a little bit more than that.
Yeah. I've never pulled an all-nighter in my life.
Really?
Yeah. Even in university.
Not in school, nothing?
No, I've always decided I would rather improvise than fall asleep during an exam. And if it's 8 o'clock at night and I haven't finished my lab report, that's my fault. I should have done it earlier. I always thought of it as time management, and I was pretty good with time management. I got worse as I grew up, but hopefully get back there.
Well, then you cracked a code much earlier than I did. I'll tell you what.
It's called not caring as much. That's what it's.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Last question of the not so fire round. What separates great sales engineers from the okay or not so good ones?
I think passion, and I'm going to go passion and honesty.
And honesty. Not many people have said that. Actually, not many people have said passion either. So
yeah.
I like it. That's a unique answer. Did you listen to all of the podcasts before and decide to come up with something new? Is that what happened?
No. No.
Yeah. You haven't listened to my podcast?
Oh, listen, because of the move, because of everything, I'm a good 2 months behind on podcasts. So I am now trying to listen to, I have a speaker in the shower now because I'm just trying to play catch up on all podcasts.
What's your favorite podcast that you listen to other than this one, obviously?
Obviously this one. Yes.
Yep.
You know what I really like? I like Darknet Diaries.
Okay.
That's really fun. It's really fun. Because, I'd like to get more into the security side of things. They just talk about all the shady things going on the internet. Right? And it talks about everyone's backstory. And I find that uncomfortably, I have a very similar background to a lot of people that have gone to jail for computer crimes. And I guess the only difference between a criminal and a not criminal is getting caught. Is what I've just come to realize.
All right, I'm not going to ask any follow-up questions about that. So you mentioned you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So. It's a good question. I probably should have that pulled up. But for the most part, Twitter, LinkedIn, Joshua M. Smith is kind of my go-to. If I can't get that, then it's Josh M. Smith. So Twitter, it's Joshua M. Smith. LinkedIn, it's Joshua M. Smith. And GitHub, it's Joshua M. Smith.
Okay. All right, man. This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time you spent with me. It was fun. All right, Joshua, thank you for coming on. This was really fun. Joshua was one of the guys who's you just want to talk to. It was a fun conversation. I hope you guys got that vibe. Tons of good information to the point where we actually recorded an extra segment all about note-taking. So if you're interested in that, make sure to follow me on LinkedIn, We the Sales Engineers, the company. I'm also putting it on YouTube, so you can check that out over there as well, depending on your platform of preference. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for sharing all this information with us. I really hope that others who have been through certain similar situations can actually benefit from it. The support structure is very important, and I hope everybody has something like that. And if you don't, maybe you should start building one. Family is important, friends are important, loved ones are important. So just have something. We are not an island as much. As an introvert, it's hard for me to say that because I think I can survive on my own forever, but that's not necessarily true. What we think and what we can actually do are two totally different things. And the more support you have, the easier it would be to actually survive bad situations. So stay safe, guys. Stay sane, and I will see you next week. With that, this is Ramsey signing off.